Hello from Switzerland, guys. Well, okay, maybe not really. You can tell from the scenery behind me that we are most definitely not in Switzerland anymore, but we were just there for 2 weeks, and in this video, I'm going to tell you how expensive Switzerland was and how we were able to keep our budget to $140 a day for 2 people. No visa necessary to enter Switzerland if you're coming from the US. Obviously, it depends on what country you're coming from, but that was a built-in saving mechanism. That $140 a day includes your 3 biggest expenses when traveling: transportation, food, and lodging. So the first way we were able to save is AirBnB. If you've never used AirBnB, I have a link in the description where you can save $40 off your very first booking. Click that link, it helps out the channel, it gives you a discount on a great service. So Airbnb is a service that lets you rent out rooms in people's houses, and a lot of them are run similar to a hostel or a hotel. They offer similar amenities, they're very knowledgeable about the area, and can give you suggestions for off-the-beaten things to check out. So we booked our Airbnb for $50 a night. Now, you can't find a hotel in Lucerne, where we were for 2 weeks, for under $150 a night. There are some hostels that if we had booked in advance we could have gotten for a little bit less, between 35 and 40 bucks, but that would have been a dorm bed in a hostel. The hostels do offer private rooms as well, but for last minute booking of the accommodations, $50 a night was a steal. We were there in the middle of October, which is kind of like shoulder season between the summer and the ski seasons in Switzerland, so that also factored in to that savings. But the #1 way to save money on a trip to Switzerland would be Airbnb. A second way to do that would be couchsurfing, couchsurfing.com, where you can stay on people's couches and often a spare bedroom for absolutely free. So I definitely recommend checking that out. Those are often more dependent on having reviews, and the best way to build up a couchsurfing reputation is to host people at your place first, build up a good reputation before you go abroad and try to stay with other people. Food is another big expense in Switzerland. However, I didn't find it too much more expensive than the United States. One of the best deals for food that we found in Lucerne was Manor. It was kind of like a department store, and on the top floor they had a restaurant called Menorah, and they had like this buffet, but the buffets there are not like in the US. They go by plate size, and it's basically as much as you can put on a plate. So the largest plate size for just veggie stuff was $12.50. For like meat, it was $15.90, and you could stack that, pile that food as high as you want, and that was definitely the cheapest outside of like getting stuff like a quick vegan hot dog or quick grab stuff at Migros or at department store. Menorah was the place to go. We ate there a couple times, and they do have free bathrooms there too. We encountered that there was several places, department stores, and even in the train station where you had to pay $2 to use the bathroom. So another way to save money, use free bathrooms. The best way to save money in Switzerland is at the grocery stores. So you have Aldi, Coop, and Migros. Aldi's the cheapest. Coop has a lot of good variety of different chocolate, and what I found especially great about Coop is they had a ton of their own house brand vegan stuff, including vegan chocolate, vegan takeaway stuff. Migros had takeaway these vegan hot dogs wrapped in like a croissant thing, like a big pig in a blanket. I was chowing down on those. They were only like $3.40, something like that. So good fast meals at the takeaway spots there, and then the bread is pretty cheap. Pretty much like US prices. The restaurants were expensive. The meat was a lot more expensive, like 40 or 50 bucks for a steak. We saw fondue was pretty expensive. It was, 30 bucks for fondue usually. More cheap food options, you could grab a slice of to-go pizza for like 4 bucks versus like a sit-down margarita pizza in a restaurant, you're looking at 16 bucks. The one thing I will say about the grocery stores is they close super early. They close at like 6:30 at night. On the outskirts of Lucerne, they weren't open on Sundays, so if you needed food for Sunday, you need to stock up on Saturday. But the grocery stores around the train station did stay open later, and they were open on Sunday, so that's something to keep in mind. If you're staying on the outskirts of the city, you have to trek in near the train station, and that gets us to our third expense, transportation, doing a lot of hiking instead of riding the gondolas, because pretty much any mountain you can take a gondola up to, but they can run in the neighborhood of $100, $150, some $200. But if you hike it as opposed to take the gondola, that'll save money as well. That was probably the most expensive thing that I saw. Like the train ride from the airport to our first Airbnb that we stayed of, like 20 minutes outside of Zurich. That was like 13 bucks a piece for about a 20-minute train ride. That was pretty expensive. The bus from where we were staying out in Obernau-Kreens, about half an hour outside of Lucerne, to get down to the train station in central Lucerne was over $4 per person. And that was probably the most expensive thing that shocked me. So there are ways to save on transportation. They do like a half-off discount card. Also, if you stay at a hotel or an Airbnb that pays taxes, they can give you a visitor card which gives you free local transportation. But you have to be staying at a place, typically like a normal hotel that's more expensive, or an Airbnb that pays taxes, which in turn usually makes that more expensive, and then they can give you this card which entitles you to free local transit. Similarly, long distance train rides, if you plan well in advance, you can get discount passes, Eurail passes, Central Switzerland passes that offer a discount for a month or several months. However, we were only there for a couple weeks, so we planned 2 day trips, one to Ticino, one to Lauterbrunnen, and it was actually cheaper for us to rent a car than it was to do even 1 day of a day trip to Ticino. 1 day day trip, it was $60 one way per person, so it would have been 240 bucks round trip for both of us just for that 1 day trip to Ticino. So the rental car was actually only $120 a day, and that was with full coverage insurance, including the refill on the petrol. So it was half the price to get a rental car for 2 days, half the price of 1 day of round trip, day trip train tickets to Ticino. So that was one way we saved money, and we're able to see a lot more stuff, obviously, with the rental car than we would have had we taken the train. If you are going to be doing anything adventurous in Switzerland, keep in mind that you should have some kind of travel insurance. My wife Sam got smashed in the face by a rock when we were climbing Mount Pilatus, and while we did save money on the gondola, we did incur a dental bill. Just two consultations and some x-rays was 500 bucks. So keep that in mind wherever you travel, but especially Switzerland, they don't have socialized medicine and their medical costs are very expensive. And a lot of times I've heard that if you don't have any insurance, they won't even treat you, supposedly. So Switzerland, definitely not a budget country, but it is doable. Like I said, the two of us did it for 140, so 50 bucks for lodging, and then that left 90 bucks for the two of us for food and transportation per day. You could do it for cheaper than we did it. We kind of did it to the mid-range to slightly lower budget, but definitely you could go a lot cheaper than we did. Switzerland was great, highly recommend it. Currently in Nepal, been here for a couple days now, in the Garden of Dreams here in Kathmandu, and one of the security guards has politely asked me to stop filming already, so I'm going to wrap this video up quick. We're gearing up to head out on a 3-week trek, but in the meantime I have plenty of videos coming from Kathmandu. Get out there, find your adventure, and be infamous.
Infamous.